Hi, my name is Melissa Hayden, and today I will be presenting Chapter 2 titled Culture and Interpersonal Communications. In this presentation, I will try to explain what culture and co-culture are in terms of communication, and I will also go over cultural values and norms, and lastly, I will talk a little bit about how we can develop intercultural communication competence to better effectively communicate with each other. Now, first I want to start out with culture and co-culture communication and explain exactly, what is culture and what is co-culture. Well, the word culture is a hotly debated term among academics. In 1952, two anthropologists, A.L. Kober and Clyde Klockenhahn, compiled a list of 164 definitions for the word culture. Now, in our textbooks, in Chapter 2, culture is defined by author, professor, and pioneer in the field of intercultural communications, Larry Shemabar, and some of his colleagues, as the language, values, beliefs, traditions, and customs people share and learn. And one of the biggest misunderstandings new people studying culture have is that an individual can have their own personalized culture. This is not true. Culture is a collective thing. It is something that is formed by groups that we grow up in and are involved in throughout our whole lifetime. Your membership in a culture is determined by your self-concept or your perception of shared characteristics of others in your culture. Your similarities, that you have with one another kind of dictate your personal identity, right? Um, when we're infants, even, we're taught certain cultural characteristics. Um, the culture we are raised in, will teach us our beliefs and our values and our norms. Um, Characteristics of each culture, of course, differentiates from one to the other. Um, Social scientists call those groups that are not like our own culture as out groups. And of course, those that we identify with are called our in groups. Um, Everyone in uh, it is a member of a culture, right? And you can also be a member of a co-culture. Um, co-cultural co-cultures are groups or subgroups within the culture, right? Um, Co-cultures can include categories based on a number of factors like age, race, sexual orientation, your geographic region, or your religion or your nationality. Let's take age, for example. You have teens and you have seniors. Um, Regionally, you have someone, say, who lives in Alabama is considered a Southerner. Someone who lives in Michigan would be considered a Midwesterner. So you have those two separate co-cultures. You can be a part of, uh, example, myself. I am a part of the African American community. I'm a Black woman. I'm part of this community of African American. But I'm also a part of this co-culture or subculture within that group of women, right? Um, so humans are multi-dimensional. So the cultures that we identify ourselves with are also multi-dimensional. Um, let's say the way the subcultures or co-cultures communicate, uh, they have their own little pattern of communication outside of their um, main culture. Let's say someone who is a teen. Let's take that example again. You have a teen and you have a senior. Um, and then I'll use myself as an example, but I won't call myself, a senior citizen. I'm going to call myself a Gen Xer. Okay. My grandson, he uses slang, that I don't understand. And I just recently learned that um, he uses a term, uh, he says cap, 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 or capping. I just learned that that is a terminology for to tell a lie or to be lying. My daughter, she is a big texter, and she's big on acronyms, which I don't understand. So I'll send back my own little acronym with a big old question mark, like, what are you talking about? You know? So there are patterns of communication within these uh, co-cultures that is understood between them that may not be understood between, the out groups in other cultures. You can be proud, to be a part of these co-cultures. At the same time, I'm sorry, you can be proud of your culture, but at the same time, you might not find that same pride in um, the co-culture that you belong to. Let's say, let's take religion, for example. Someone who is practicing um, the Muslim faith. Um, is very proud of their Muslim religion and their Muslim upbringing and their Muslim heritage. But they're also a part of this college co-culture, and maybe one of the members in that co-culture is Christian, and so they kind of butt heads when it comes to their religious beliefs. So even though she's proud to be Muslim, proud to be of this Muslim culture, uh, she kind of feels ostracized over here in her co-culture of fellow college students. Um, Now, communication is the process of exchanging information, ideas, thoughts, feelings, and emotion through speech signal, writing, or behavior. Communication function is bringing about understanding between individuals and groups. Uh, Now, sometimes, communication is very deliberate. You think about what you're going to say before you say it, so as to not to, be misunderstood or cause harm to the listener. Now, how, members of two different cultures or co-cultures communicate is called intercultural communication. And it's influenced by your cultural characteristics. You know, uh, Again, just like the example I gave between my grandson, his co-cultural characteristic is, communicating in slang, and mine's is not. So you have to learn how to um, adapt your language to the listeners so that the listener understands, what you're trying to convey. Um, so uh, then you have cultural values and norms. And cultural values and norms um, are our beliefs and our values, you know. And Webster defines beliefs as something that is accepted, something that's considered to be true. Value is something that is desirable, something such as principle, right? Norms is a pattern or trait taken to be typical in the behavior of a social group. just simply put, beliefs are our assumptions of things that we believe are true. Our values are our principles, and our norms are the rules that we go by, within our cultural groups. Um, Now, some of these values that we hold influence, of course, the way we communicate. Uh, you have high context communicators, and you have low context uh, communicators and cultures, right? And in some cultures, say, like America, Germany, communication occurs predominantly through explicit statements in your text and your speech. Um, in low context cultures, such as Japan and China, your messages are usually communicative cues such as body language. A high context culture, they value, harmony. They're not confrontational at all. They're indirect. The language can be very vague. So it kind of falls on the listener to try to grasp, the meaning of the message. But low context cultures, totally opposite. They're very direct, um, in your face, and they're explicit, about what they say, because they want to make sure that the listener uh, heard what I said. So totally different ways of getting your message across. Individualism and collectivism. Collectivist communities are they're more focused on the community, right? They're their culture is primarily responsible for the group goals. They're more group oriented, whereas a individualistic culture is more about you know they're more independent. They're more self-sufficient. So it's more individual accomplishments as opposed to group accomplishments. Um, Achievement versus nurturing. Achievement oriented cultures desire challenge, personal responsibility, feedback, and recognition. They're very competitive. So when they have achieved, a goal, they want to be recognized for it. A nurturing oriented culture, their emphasis is on the relationship of the community as a whole. They're more concerned with the well-being of others, and they focus on human interaction and caring rather than the competitive nature, of an achievement culture. Then you have your verbal and your nonverbal cues. Um, Miscommunication is the failure to communicate an intended message to another person, and it is often an unfortunate byproduct of everyday communication. Now, verbal codes are a set of rules um, that we use to create a message. Okay, verbal cues, of course, are verbal; they're oral. They're spoken. Nonverbal cues are like body language. Um, uh, a head bow, or folding your arms, or an eye roll. Those would be nonverbal cues. You're sending a message, but you haven't said a word, but your expression says it all, right? Um, Now, in some countries, nonverbal cues mean different things, so we have to be conscious of that when we're speaking to someone, or we're using gestures from someone from another culture. For example, you know, the thumbs up here in the United States, it usually means, you know, hey, you done a good job, or okay, I got it. You know, in Middle Eastern country, the thumbs up is considered offensive. It's they're our equivalent to, you know, the middle finger. So that's something that you need to be conscious of again when you're talking to someone from a different culture. You know, um, read up and try to you know, enlighten yourself about different cultural norms and values from, you know, different communities. Um, Now, the first step to communicate successfully, of course, is the desire to learn how to communicate with someone from another culture. You know, um, you shouldn't have the attitude, well, they're over here in my country, they need to speak my language. You know, we need to learn to be a little more compassionate about that, and try to look at it as if, you know, what would our um, desire, our feelings, our emotions would be if we were in a foreign country and we knew nobody and didn't speak the language. We would want somebody to be a little more compassionate with us, you know, and to try to communicate with us. So, you know, you got to have a desire to want to engage in the first place, and then we have, you know, to lay down our cultural superiority and our prejudice. You know, get past that to be able to competently, you know, communicate. Um, we kind of think competence implies, you know, that we've mastery, you know, over another culture. But the biggest problem is that when we feel competent, we begin to assume, you know, the role of expert, and we begin to let our, you know, our prejudices creep in. You know, sometimes, you know, the characteristics or traits, you know, attributed to a particular group, we, you know, may actually be stereotyping, you know, this, you know, group, you know, based on our own personal biases. Um, we have to also learn to be patient, you know, with someone from another culture. Uh, and if we persevere, you know, and maintain, you know, our communication competence through, you know, continual learning, continual education, then we would all be better at communicating with one another. Because after all, you know, you can not communicate. You have to communicate. So staying educated and learning, you know, new skills and techniques on how to communicate effectively, I think, is in the best interest of all cultures and all communities. Thank you for listening.